Good to go. Okay. We speak a lot, and we spoke in assembly not long ago about our own purpose, and we're obviously guided by our guiding principles of self-worth, engagement, and purpose. And we, as an academy, want to offer you as many opportunities to listen to amazing and inspirational people as we possibly can. Now, today, we're really excited because the person whose name is on this academy, Sir Ian Livingstone, is here today to talk to us and to hopefully do this much more often as well, about creating and inspiring us for our futures. Aspirations is all about reaching our dreams, having a dream, finding our purpose, and then moving towards that. And we, like I said, want to provide you with inspirational people that can talk to you about how they've achieved it. And that's what today is about. So, Sir Ian obviously understands the power of technology, his creative skills, his enthusiasm for the digital platforms and digital world, his business acumen, his hard work. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Ian for the last hour about actually how he got to be so successful and the ins and outs of his story. And that's the part of it we really want you to hear today. It's not just by luck. It's not just by an idea that Sir Ian has got to a point of the huge success that he's had. And that's where you can learn from this today. So, Sir Ian doesn't really need an introduction. He's got an honorary doctorate from Bournemouth University, an OBE, an MBE, a knighthood, and a BAFTA as well. So he's extremely successful and we couldn't have picked anybody better to come and talk to you about today. So I would like to welcome Sir Ian Livingstone, who's going to talk to you this afternoon.
Thank you. It's great to be back in school again. It's been quite a while. So you're probably wondering what this old guy at the front is going to tell you about today, about how could anyone so old remotely be interested in games? Well, games has actually been my life. Life has been a game. And I turned my passion of playing games into a lifelong career. And I will never retire because work and play is the same for me. So I think the first lesson we'll learn today is that do what you enjoy or do something else, because if you enjoy it, you'll do it well. And you won't see it as hardship, you'll see it as enjoyment, no matter how bad it might be at the time when you're starting off. So I'm going to give you a bit of a journey through, a look at my journey through life, how I turned my dream of playing games into a reality of making games, and how you can also find your element and do well and achieve what you want to do in life, because it's possible for everybody to do that. I came from a very humble background, lived in a very sort of dodgy house up in Manchester many years ago. Had an outside loo and didn't have any money, but I had a belief and saw it through. So I'd say I started playing games like Monopoly, and you kind of start off in life at the beginning, and you roll the dice and you move through life. And I played an awful lot. I did well playing Monopoly at school. I learned to play chess at school. You probably thought I was born not long after chess was invented. Well, you're right. But I've enjoyed playing chess my whole life. It gives you that strategical thought and able to engage with people and understand how to plan and strategize. I also have an incredible games collection at home. I've got literally over 2,000 board games and hundreds of video games. And in the 1970s, I wanted to know, how could we possibly turn this hobby of playing games into a business of making them? Well, we started with very humble beginnings. I came to London in the early 70s and shared a flat with two old school friends, Steve Jackson and John Peake. And we had pretty boring, low-paid jobs, and we stayed in and played games quite a lot. And we thought, how can we reach out and to find other games players out there? How can we create a community? So we published this very fantastic magazine. You can see this full-color glossy magazine here called Owl and Weasel. And we sent it out to everybody we knew in games. and just to reach out to see what kind of community was out there. And one of the recipients of that, even though we hadn't sent it to him directly, was a gentleman called Gary Gygax, who lived in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin in the United States. And he wrote to us and said, "Love your magazine. Here's this new game we've just invented. What do you think?" And that game was Dungeons and Dragons. And this was the original box from the 1970s. I mean, it didn't look much. This game didn't appeal because of its design or its art. But when you opened up that box, it opened up your imagination like no game had ever done before. And I don't think any game ever will again. This is a role-playing game in which you're a hero, a wizard, or a cleric, or a thief who went on these fantastic journeys of the mind, navigating the worlds created by a dungeon master, killing monsters, finding treasure, taking on an alter ego. This is way before video games of that similar sort had come about. So we ordered 6 copies because that's all the money we had in the world. And on the back of that order, we were given a 3-year exclusive distribution agreement for the whole of Europe. That was an extraordinary opportunity, but we didn't understand how important that was. So we started, this is Steve Jackson and myself in 1976 with our very first copies of Dungeons and Dragons. The handsome guy on this side, that's me. And we decided to go to the United States to try and find out more about the games companies that were starting off. So we went over to the States and met Gary Gygax and all these fledgling games companies, and we signed them up, said we were British distributors of these fantastic games companies, we would like to sell your games. So we ordered tons of games. We'd given up our flat by then. We kind of risked it all. We'd given up our jobs, more importantly. We'd left that security of income to follow our dream, to go to the States and come back with these relationships with these games companies. The games came back. We came back to the UK with nowhere to live and no office and no money. So we go to the bank manager rather enthusiastically and said, "Hello, our company's called Games Workshop. We are distributors of Dungeons and Dragons, the role-playing game where you kill monsters and find treasure and go these fantastic journeys of the mind." And the bank manager looked at us rather like a dog watches television, had no understanding whatsoever what we were talking about, and asked us to leave. And so we were quite angry about that. We only wanted to borrow £10,000. What's your problem? And we realized that we weren't actually prepared. Now, this is quite early in your life to understand about being investor ready, but you have to have more than just an idea to execute on that idea. You have to have financial support to allow you the runway to be able to execute your ideas over time. You have to be able to hire people you want to hire. You have to have a funded business. Otherwise, it's just so difficult to get going because you can't generate any revenue to sustain your business. So that necessitated us finding a tiny office at the back of an estate agent, which we rented, but we had no money left to live on. So we had to live in Steve's van for 3 months. And it was in winter of 1976, and it was raining hard, and it's cold and smelly and all that. So it was pretty small, triangular life, but we didn't mind it because we were living the dream. We were enjoying it. And that's another important thing. We didn't do it to start thinking we're going to make a lot of money. We were doing it because we wanted to do it, that we were forging our own destiny. We were enjoying what we were doing. We were following a dream and hoping it might become successful over time. I'm glad to say it did, of course. And we finally had enough money through sales, and we could get a flat and start building a life. And we started a magazine called White Dwarf Magazine. And we opened our very first shop in 1978. This is the queue outside, waiting for it. And it kind of validated what we've been trying to do for the past couple of years, to create a hobby around our games, of role-playing games. And it was great to see that. It was a memorable day that will never be forgotten, April 1978. And it inspired us to want to do more of the same. And of course, Games Workshop grew and grew and grew, became more professional. We had more shops, more games. And perhaps the most important thing, of course, was establishing Warhammer. How many of you have heard of Warhammer in this audience? Quite a lot. But when in the 1970s and early 80s, nobody heard about it at all, and it was very difficult. But when you believe in something and get other people to believe in you and enjoy what you're doing, you'll find an audience and you'll hopefully benefit from that. And another important lesson for you, if you ever do start a business, is owning the intellectual property. By that I mean holding on to what you create without giving it away to another company or selling it too early. Hang on to any intellectual property that you create to build value in the company and also to help build your own lives securely. And of course, Games Workshop these days is now rebranding its stores as Warhammer stores, such as the success of that intellectual property. And now you've heard about how Amazon Studios are going to make movies and TV series with Henry Cavill, Superman, who's a Warhammer player himself, taking control of the production side of that. So this is an example, my early example of turning a passion in, going beyond a dream to an idea, to executing on the idea. Because a lot of people will have ideas and they say, I've got this great idea, but they don't do anything about it. The number of people in my life who said, oh, I had that idea. And I said, well, why didn't you do it? It's very easy to say no. There's never a great time to do something, but you have to do it if you can. Make that leap into the unknown, because it'll be very exciting. And even if you fail, it doesn't matter. Failure is just success, work in progress. You will find a way one day to succeed if you're determined enough to follow your dreams. Of course, we say Warhammer, a fantastic universe has been created with all the amazing storytellers and artists and animators who've helped build the world of Warhammer 40,000, this dark dystopian world of eternal wars of the Space Marines versus the rest. During Games Workshop, Steve and I also came up with an original idea again, but again, it's the execution, that's the hard bit, to turn our idea of a book becoming a branching narrative book, a book in which you, the reader, are the hero. Now, young people of today, we all know that you like to lean into stuff rather than lean back. You prefer interactive entertainment to linear entertainment because that engagement, giving you power through choice, is a lot more appealing than just letting the director tell you what you should be seeing or not seeing. So this was kind of analog hypertext, taking a story idea but turning it into a branching narrative, a book in which, say, you are the hero, the first one being The Warlock of Firetop Mountains, our very first Final Fantasy game book, and giving you a series of choices at the end of which paragraph you had to make a choice, whether turn left, turn right, fight the monster, don't fight the monster. And using dice to roll, determine the success or not of your choices. This really resonated with children, particularly in the 1980s, this kind of pre-video game boom, but giving that empowerment of choice and just making one more decision, because you can fail, because my job as an author is try and lure you to your doom, thinking you're going to make the right choice to find a treasure chest full of gold, but only to find yourself falling onto poison spikes and suffering a terrible death. But you could always start again, and that's what I encourage people to try again. These books are very successful, published in over 25 languages, sold over 20 million copies. But at the time they were criticized, and some people might have just given up. People were saying because children are using their imaginations too much that they should be banned. A local vicar near our publisher's Penguin Books threatened to chain himself to the railings of Penguin Books until they were banned. There was a woman in deepest suburbia phoned her local radio station, said, having read one of my books, her son levitated. Whereas most kids were thinking, what, for £1.50 I can fly? Really? I'll have some of that. So again, sometimes what you think is a bad idea, the society thinks is a bad idea, people actually really enjoy what you're doing. So try and have an original idea, but again, execute on that idea. After interactive books, I moved into video games, and we sold Workshop in 1991, and I invested in the company that we put 4 companies together to create a company called IDOS, which floated on the London Stock Exchange in 1995. And of course, IDOS most famously known for producing and launching Lara Croft Tomb Raider. I think we had 100,000 units in the budget and sold 7 million copies of the first one. And the game industry is one example of the incredible industries that this country has been successful at. And of course, games goes beyond entertainment, goes beyond fun. Games bring people together in a social setting. We've seen the learnings that you can have from not just playing Minecraft, but using Minecraft as a construction tool. A child can learn by applying the heat of a furnace to silica sand, that they can make glass and take that glass and put it in their environments. So you can learn about games require you to problem solve. You can't get through a game without problem solving. You learn intuitively. You can fail in a safe environment. Games are effectively a management simulation. Games like Roller Coaster Tycoon, you're learning how the construction of the physics of the rides, the monetization of the rides to make sure your economy is working well, and the staffing levels required to run those rides. And if you fail, you're not punished like you are in an exam. We all learn at different speeds, and the game allows you to succeed at different speeds. So there are so many wonderful things about games that people don't actually talk about. But for me, games is an industry and also a learning tool. We've seen how games has gone beyond playing it just on various devices to become a spectator sport. How young people today enjoy watching their best in class, like the older generations like watching real world sports, younger generations like real world sports and digital sports, and see these people doing this fantastically well. The ecosystem of video games being streamed to millions of people through Twitch and other devices has been extraordinary. So that's another area of the industry that might become an idea for you to have a career choice. We've seen how games has created an industry that is now $250 billion a year industry. Some of the biggest franchises in the world have been created in the UK, from Grand Theft Auto to Tomb Raider to Golf Clash to Football Manager. There's been incredible in games publishing in the UK. It's just that not enough people in the media know about it. And that means that doesn't filter down to careers. Advise people, to parents, to guardians, to politicians about what a great career opportunity is. Because all the different skills required to make a game might appeal to all of you in some degree or fashion, from storytelling to software programming and development to games design to sound to music to lighting to monetization. There are so many parts and component parts to games now that might appeal to some or all of you. But of course, I'm not here just to talk about the game industry. I want to talk today about how I got motivated to start my businesses and how you might have different career choices. But I'd advise you to kind of follow your heart and do something that you really enjoy, no matter what it was to be. If you want to have a profession, go into the health service or a lawyer or whatever it might be, you have to want to do it in the first place, not just because it pays well. And you should not be afraid of hardship. And I'll talk about that a little bit too. So how do you turn your dreams into reality? How do you turn the impossible into the possible? What simple steps should you take to actually fulfill that dream? Well, creativity, a key component thing. It's difficult to teach creativity. It's an intangible thing. You can't really define it. You can't weigh or measure it. You can't test it. But it is there. It's at the central and focal part of any product or service these days. So it's an idea that has value. But how do you turn that idea into reality? Because that execution of the idea is the hard bit. Well, as I said, for me, I followed my heart. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I did it, even through adversity, because it's not seen as hardship whilst you're doing it. So I think this small poem here, this little saying, kind of demonstrates that it's impossible, said pride. It's risky, said experience. It's pointless, said reason. Give it a try, whispered the heart. So follow your heart is a good reason. Embrace and unleash the power of me. You can all do it. You have to have self-belief, not self-doubt. Americans in particular demonstrate self-belief. Whereas in the UK, we often think, well, I'm not sure if I can do that. Yes, you can do that. Have that belief and you can do it. It's absolutely possible for you to do it if you set your mind on doing something which you enjoy. Be positive in your approach to life. See a glass as half full, not half empty. Be positive, and that will have material effects of the people around you. That enthusiasm positivity makes things happen. If you just think, oh, that's not going to happen, that's not for me, you have a sense of negativity in the room. So embrace other people, motivate other people by being positive yourself, and just do it. This photograph is when the first one of the three of us when we started Games Workshop. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were just turning an idea into a very small business at the time. But we did it. And don't just talk about it, do it. And because you have to be in to win it. Wayne Gretzky, a famous hockey player, played in the United States, said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So unless you do it, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter if you fail. You'll take your learnings and move on. And next time you do it well. Angry Birds, probably a mobile phone game you might have heard of. The company who made that, Rovio. Angry Birds was their 51st game. It wasn't their first game. So take your learnings, fail fast, move on, and you will be successful. I say, don't be afraid of failure. As Einstein said, anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. So don't be afraid of trying things new. Experiment, and try not to be a me too person. Try and put original ideas, and don't give up. Again, this is reference to Games Workshop when we started off. This wasn't actually the van we lived in, but it was pretty similar. And in the mornings we get up and we joined a local squash club for a shave and a shower. Got pretty good at squash by default. But and then into our little office where we did mail orders till like 12 o'clock at night and back into the Stink Hill van. But don't give up. That's my number one message. And be a team player. We're all different. I don't really like exams that have a standardized metric, making everyone be tested against the same statistics, particularly, because together we can do great things. We should embrace that difference. Great minds don't think alike. So it's good to take the best of everybody. If you look at any workplace, all the people in that workplace are likely to be different with different skills. And if they all did the same things, nothing would happen. I always use the analogy of I'm from Manchester originally, so I'm naturally a Manchester City fan. It's a bit like Pep Guardiola saying to Erling Haaland, Erling, you've scored a lot of goals recently, you're doing really well, but you really need to practice on your goalkeeping. It's absolutely pointless. Do what you're good at, and part of the people who can do the stuff that you can't do or won't do. And that's how you build up a successful business. It's all about being a team player, treat people well, have good empathy with people, and that will also be motivational. And dare to be different. If you can, try and be something original in your life. These interactive books we wrote, they were criticized at the beginning. Nobody wants to talk about them. Positivity, saying that books should all be linear, and yet they sold 20 million copies. So against public opinion at the time, these are books were hugely successful that we wrote. And then you can turn your dreams into reality. You have to participate, and the joy of this school is that you all participate in your learning, and through that you will achieve. No matter how you start in life, you have the right digital making skills, an entrepreneurial mindset, not being afraid of failure. You might probably become a job maker rather than just a job seeker, and you can help. And that is so gratifying, to be in control of your own destiny. But whether you want to do that or not, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do what you enjoy and do it well. I'm so delighted and proud to be part of this establishment. I think you're going to have, and probably are already having, an amazing learning experience here, and will have the enthusiasm, the passion, and the motivation to be successful in whatever you do. Of course, I'd love you to make games, but whatever you do, I wish you well, and thank you very much. I'm now going to be embarrassed by questions. Yeah. So I think there's some that have been already prepared.
Yeah. So, just before we introduce the questions, I would like to say a huge thank you to Serene for that amazing presentation. It resonates so well with me and everything we've been saying to you, doesn't it? About find your passion, because you're going, whatever you want to do, you have to work really hard at it. And if you've got that passion, it doesn't feel like hard work. So finding that thing for you and then do it. And we do have some questions online, which are on the next slides, I believe. I think they're a video. At the end of these videos, you will be able to ask questions.
Okay, so I'll be answering a virtual question first.
Hi, I'm Sandra Fenn from Futures Institute. I'm currently in year 10. Why did you decide to sell Games Workshop at the time? And how did you come to the price of 10 million?
Very good question. She's in the room to answer it. There never seems to be a right time to start a business, and there never seems a right time to sell it. But for a start, just for information only, that amount registered was from Wiki, which was not correct, by the way. But in answer to the question, we sold out in 1991, and we'd been running Games Workshop for a considerable number of years. We'd also become international best-selling authors. So trying to run Games Workshop during the day and writing books at night till like 2 a.m. was becoming challenging, to put it mildly, even though I was a lot younger than I am today. And we'd had an approach, we'd appointed a manager and director, and we thought this is a good time. And he eventually wanted to sell out. So it was a kind of collective decision. It wasn't our immediate decision to do it ourselves, because we were very emotionally attached to Games Workshop. But it's now been incredibly successful, really doing the same that we ever did, publishing Warhammer, our own retail shops, White Dwarf magazine. And that is a great British success story. It's now on the London Stock Exchange. The company is now worth £3.5 billion. It's an international success story, 500 shops. Incredible. We could not have done it on our own, obviously. But I think it's great for the country that it's a publicly owned company and continues to do well, and long may it continue. Question number 2. Is this going to be an embarrassing one too?
Year 9 for Bournemouth Academy. How important was Lara Croft as a character, and did she attract more women to play?
Did she
attract more women?
more women to play. Well, the history of Lara Croft is that we published a game called Rick Dangerous, and it was a tomb raiding style game with a character who looked a little bit like Indiana Jones, if people being honest about it. So the idea was to change this new character, give it a new title, but have the same sort of gameplay. And Toby Gard, a 2D artist at Core Design, where it was developed up in Derby, had seen the rise of girl power and Nana Cherry and Tank Girl, and women were becoming far more independent in those days. And he proposed a female lead character, which was quite unique for the games industry. It was also the very first game, or one of the very first games, with a 3D character moving into a 3D world. At those times, games were mainly 2D, side-scrolling games. He had this great idea to make a very strong, powerful, independent, athletic female character, and everyone was supportive of that. So I think it was hugely, it was a great game as well, by the way. Great gameplay, fantastic technology, camera movement that hadn't been done before. The resolution and speed of the gameplay was amazing. Plus, it was great experience to play. And of course, it did attract more women to playing games. And I think something like 40% of the initial Tomb Raider players were female, which was great. And the games industry was often criticized in the early days for kind of blokes making games for blokes. But now, as it's evolved over time, more people are consuming, represent society as it is today, and then also in the development. So it's going to make it more representative of the world that we live in. So I think it was an important step in that direction. So yes, indeed, it did help appeal to a much wider, of course, female audience. Here we go again.
Academy. How do we keep people safe online whilst they're gaming?
There's parental controls on devices, which is important. I think parents need to understand more about the digital world than they do. They can't just outsource the responsibility to schools or just ignore it entirely themselves. They have to embrace it. Like most parents know about ratings on films, and games are all equally rated. Therefore, games that have an 18 rating shouldn't really be played by children who are below that age. So there has to be parental and guardian impact on the types of games and how people are playing, and also to moderate how long people are playing for. But I would always argue that games are a powerful good if they're played responsibly. Any more online? End of slideshow. So it's over to you, the live audience. Look me in the eyes and ask me horrendous questions. The little girl at the back on the left. What's your name? Where do you come from?
You started your business with your great friends. Are you still friends? And would you advocate for friendships as we start a business?
Yes, I did, and I am still very good friends with Steve Jackson. We are lifelong friends. We still play board games together every week, usually, with the same group of people we've been playing forever. Should you start a business with friends? They have to be very good friends. I know a lot of businesses where people have fallen out. The important thing, you have to get on with who you're working with. So many companies fail when the people who start the business were never going to get on long term, and they fall out for different reasons. So it has to be effectively like a marriage in a way, where you share out the unhappiness together, rather than, and also, but enjoy the benefits together. But do what you're good at. But don't feel that there's an imbalance in that partnership. How many hands have we got at the front here? We better start along the row. Okay, who wants to go first? You can go first, and we'll go along the row. Why have we got so many games? Because I love them. All games are different. I mean, libraries are full of books. My home's full of games. Some people like to surround themselves with books, me too, but I also take comfort from all the games I own. I haven't played them all, to be honest about that, but each one I've got is there for a reason, a mechanic or an idea that really excites me. But games are, I say, they really get your mind thinking in multiple ways, and good, definitely good for you. Right, next. Oh, you have to wait. We'll get back to you on that road. So next one, yes. How do I know how to play Mario? Should we play afterwards? I bet I'll beat you. I've been playing Mario for a young time. Trouble is, I'm now old, so my reflexes are good, really slow. So you're bound to beat me, but I've got a few tricks up my sleeve, because that's how you learn strategies. It's not all about being the fastest wins. Yes. What way to make the school? Because I had a terrible time at school. I did really quite badly at school because I didn't enjoy my learnings. And the head teacher said to me, Livingstone, I know you want to stay at home, but don't you think you go and work in a garage or something? And so he didn't really motivate me. But and the teachers weren't great at that school. They didn't motivate you. They didn't engage, and they kind of picked on terrible things to criticize you, rather than making you, inspire you to do well. I'm sure everyone here is inspired by being in this building. Teachers are fantastic here. They understand how to work with you, to inspire you, because you're engaged through your own curiosity. And so I wanted to be, I convinced the government to put coding on the curriculum in 2013, not just me, but other people. And that happened in 2014 in English schools, to turn children from being in the passenger seat of consumption of technology into the driver's seat of creativity. So ICT, as was taught, was largely about learning Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, teaching kids how to read but not how to write. So I wanted you to become a creator. And I thought at this school, having a good creative digital creativity and a good arts education and cross-curricular, that you'd really be engaged, enjoyed by learning by doing. If you're doing something, you will learn. If you're just listening, sometimes you don't listen. Yes. How many games do I have? What, precisely? I can give you an estimate. Board games, nearly 2,000. Video games, about 400. Is that a scary number? Right, back to this row. We'll get to the other rows eventually. Yeah. Why live in a van? Well, when you've got nowhere else to live, Steve had a van. He called it Van Morrison. And we were in there for nearly 3 months. And we weren't there out of choice, I can guarantee it. But sometimes needs must. But we were enjoying it because we found our elements. We were turning our hobby of playing games, which we love so much, into a tiny business. And that business evolved to be something quite special. We can't go with the same people again, so we'll move up to the next row. Nothing on the next row. Oh, this little boy at the front.
So, I can remember getting my first Dungeons and Dragons basics, 1982. How did you get it in front of me?
How?
Yeah.
I thought you might know that. Well, it was either, well, for the books and for D&D at the beginning, it was the variety of the day was the playground. So it was personal recommendation, playground chat. One person would tell somebody else, would tell somebody else, to somebody else, and that would link to another school through friends in another school. So it was playground power, mainly, and White Dwarf magazine, and conventions. We used to run these conventions called Games Day, and people would write about that. Not always in good terms, but they would write about it. Yeah, we're on the next row now. So I will come back to the front row, honestly. Yeah. Sorry, I could do with a mic. My hearing's not that great. How much do you make? What's the network? How much do you make from video games? Well, that's impossible to say how much you make from a game, because it depends on how many you sell of a game. And some games are free to play and they're monetized through in-app purchases or through advertising. Rewarded advertising creates revenue for the people who make the game. So there are multiple ways of making money from games. So it's either premium sold in a box or premium where you download onto your consoles. And it depends. I mean, some costs. It also depends on how much it costs to make a game. A game like, something like Flappy Birds would have probably cost about $1,000 to make, whereas something like Grand Theft Auto 6, when it eventually comes, will cost about £500 million to make, because it's been taken 10 years and hundreds of people to make that game. So they have to recoup that investment through charging their price. But it's a very, if you get it right, you can be richly rewarded from making games. Okay, we're going to jump to this row first. We go further up.
What's your favorite console?
My favorite console, I think it has to be PlayStation. It's the one we launched. That was only if it's a desert island, but they're all great. I mean, Switch is great for what it does. Xbox is great for what it does. And you can even get, the Steam Deck now for playing all the PC games on. I mean, they're all good. It's kind of only incremental. It's just like if there was 3 in a row and a house was burning down, which one would I grab? Probably the PlayStation. But I'm happy with all of them. Right, we're moving up the rows. Oh, this row still. Yeah.
Come up with the idea for one.
I didn't come up with the idea for Warhammer 40K. I wish I had. The initial idea was from a guy called Brian Ansell, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago. In fact, it's his funeral tomorrow. I'm going to that in Nottingham. He had an idea whereby he previously published a set of rules called Laser Burn, and he was running Citadel Miniatures for us in Nottingham. And obviously, we were selling lots of single units of figures, miniatures, for Dungeons and Dragons, because there were single figures representing the players and meeting single monsters. And Brian had his idea at that time was he wanted a set of rules that would require people to buy regiments of figures. And so he had his idea from his Laser Burn and modified it into what became Warhammer 40k, and he brought in two other guys, Rick Priestley and Richard Halliwell, who fleshed out the original Warhammer into 40k, which was predominantly Rick Priestley was the developer of that. But again, like any products, evolved over time. It was 83 when Warhammer came out, the original one, 87 when Warhammer 40k. So it's obviously evolved a lot with huge teams of people now writing those rules for workshop. Right, we're moving up the rows. Yeah. Main tip for living. I think it's always like, don't be afraid of failure, because sometimes when you fail, you think, oh, I've tried that. I better do something else now and go back to working for somebody else. But you learn so much when you fail, and you won't make those same mistakes. So you just iterate on your failure and turn it into a success. I mean, the drink 7-Up is because it was this guy's 7th idea. You don't expect to be successful at the get-go. Some of the most successful games companies in the UK in particular, they didn't succeed from their first game. Golf Clash, company produced by Playdeck in Manchester, who I was had quite a lot of interest in at the time. That was like their 8th game, and that company was sold. Eventually, we sold it first to Warner Brothers, who then sold it on to Electronic Arts for $1.3 billion. Now, this is 80 people in Manchester on their 8th game. The other ones hadn't done very well, and so they had this mega risk. But they would never have done that game if they hadn't had all the failures first. So there are a million things I could give you, like retaining ownership of your IP, partnering with the right people, getting funding in, but take your learnings and move on. But fail fast. If it's going bad, don't carry on with it. Try something else. Yeah.
When playing Dungeons and Dragons, what class would you pick?
Ambar the Barbarian has been my guy for some time. He's getting a bit old now, a bit long in the tooth, but I always play this sort of mad barbarian. Yeah. Games Workshop. The company. Yeah. Well, we sold it in 1991. Nothing like the amount it's worth now, but we were never motivated by making money when we started off. We followed a dream. It just so happened that was a very successful dream. And your success usually means reward, and that reward is usually money, but it shouldn't be the original reason you do anything in life. But it's nice as a byproduct of success. It's nice to have it, of course. Yeah. You got the highest hand up, so you can go. Yeah.
So how do you start a business? Was it like hard to back then?
It was much harder. It was a time of economic stagnation. Anyone starting a business in those days was probably stupid, because it was 3-day working week. There was electricity power outs, rubbish all over the streets. Economy was in a mess. But there's never a right time to start. So you just do it and see what happens and make the best of it. There's never the right time. There's always plenty of reasons not to do stuff. You got to find the right reason to do it. One more maybe at the back, hand up. How
expensive an endeavour is it to start a new business?
Well, that's kind of how long is a piece of string. I mean, you can start it in your bedroom, digital business, where the overhead and cost to start it is virtually next to nothing. But that's why it's so important, particularly in this school, to learn digital making skills, because you, through programming, can create a product or service that you can access a global market through the internet. So you can monetize the whole world with the right product or service that you create. So starting off is a lot easier today, because the traditional gatekeepers of the supply chain in the analog world of physical products are no longer in your way. You can go straight to a consumer with whatever you create. Any more before I get kicked off the stage? I'm sorry, but I don't have time for a second question from anybody. Yeah. Do I play? Fortnite. You know, when I think I survived about 8 seconds when I played Fortnite. Clearly, I'm just too slow to play Fortnite. I have to play games, strategy games. I play like Civilization, games like that. Slow strategy games.
Boys and girls, what would we like to thank Sue for coming in and talking to us today? And I think we need a big round of applause.
Good luck on your adventures. Thank you.
Would you like to come?